What is up, nerds, geeks, and gamers? It's Rage, and before we get to the video, there's a couple things I needed to say. First of all, if you notice a change in the audio quality, or even more random jumps than normal, it's because my lapel mic was dying as I was recording, and I didn't realize it until near the end. So I'm going to be dubbing over some parts of the video to try and make the video more watchable. Second of all, I highly recommend getting Parmigiano Reggiano instead of just regular Parmesan. It makes a world of difference. This Alfredo is still tasty, but with Parmigiano Reggiano, it's out of this world. And lastly, but not least, special thanks to Joshua Wiseman, who inspired the recipe. It's basically his recipe, except I didn't follow, the measurements and stuff like that. So I'm going to be leaving a card in the top right hand corner showing top right hand corner, showing with the link to his video for Alfredo. Please give it a watch if you haven't seen it. He does two other versions of Alfredo that you might like to try instead, but I just wanted to put that in there. I don't want anyone to think I'm ripping him off or stole his idea. It's I was inspired by him to make the Alfredo and have made it a handful of times since I watched the video. So please go watch it, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the video. Thank you. What is up, nerds, geeks, and gamers? It's Rage, and today I'm going to be making a nice homemade Alfredo. Now, if you've seen my previous Alfredo video, then you know that we used canned, jarred Alfredo sauce. This one, we're actually going to make the sauce itself. Um, so this is going to be a little bit more expensive. Obviously, you got to buy a couple more things, but in my opinion, it is very much worth it. It's the best Alfredo I've ever had. I have never had a better Alfredo at any restaurant whatsoever, and I really, really recommend you trying this if you want to step out of your comfort zone a little bit and try something actually homemade. It's still relatively simple, but definitely a lot more involved. So I'm going to show you everything that I have and what we're going to be using. So obviously it's chicken Alfredo, so we have chicken. You're gonna want to buy yourself a slice of Parmesan cheese. You're supposed to use Parmigiano Reggiano. However, my local grocery store doesn't carry it. They had it at once upon a time, but I have yet to see it there again. And also, Walmart has not had it either. You're also going to want to buy yourself some fresh thyme. I highly recommend doing the fresh one and not like the powdered stuff that you can buy because it won't taste as good and will look more unappetizing. You're also going to need a couple cloves of garlic. I'm going to use the whole thing of garlic myself. You can use less or more depending on how much you like garlic. And then obviously, because we're making chicken Alfredo, you need your pasta. I'm using thin spaghetti. You can use whatever you want. Heavy cream. This is the base of your Alfredo sauce. And then you also need some butter because you're going to be combining the butter and the heavy cream. Alright, I just finished cutting up the chicken. And even though you can't hear it, the water is a boiling. So at this point, go ahead and put your chicken in your pan. Season it and turn it on. Cook it with butter. And go ahead and get your pasta ready as well. Uh, I do plan on breaking it in half again, and I'm also only going to be using half of the box of noodles since I still have some noodles left over from last time. So if I need more, I have it ready. So the chicken is almost done, and the pasta is definitely done. I just gotta go ahead and drain it. But before you go and drain your water, you're going to want to grab a cup of some sort and just grab some of the water. It's starchy from the pasta, which means it'll help thicken up the sauce if you need it. Um, I don't think we'll need it, but it's always better safe than sorry, and it's just a good idea in case. So I'm gonna go drain the water and grab us a nice little cupful of starch water. Chicken and noodles are done, and we got our pasta water. Can't forget that. So now it's on to making the sauce, and quite honestly, you should have been making the sauce while you were making your chicken and noodles, but I just wanted to show you guys the process and thought that it might take longer anyway, so I'm doing it after those are done. So the first thing you should do is get started with grating up your cheese. I do the whole amount because I also do the whole freaking 16 ounces, 1 pint of heavy cream. You can always use a little bit less. You're supposed to technically only use like 1 1/3 cup of the heavy cream, but I've been never been too good with actually measuring and stuff like that. A lot of my cooking is done by the heart. So I am going to go ahead and grate this whole thing of cheese. Um, you should use about 2/3 of it in the actual sauce and save the last third for when everything is together and you can top your Alfredo with the cheese. After we're done grating that, I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys how to pluck fresh thyme and then also try my best to cut up the garlic into tiny, tiny pieces because you want it to disappear into the sauce. You don't want it to be super noticeable. As you can see, I have finished cutting up, so I say grating all of the cheese. There's a nice heaping mound now. So, it's time to move on, and the next thing we're going to be doing is the thyme. So, I haven't really experimented with the best ways to do it, but the first 2 or 3 times I've done it, it seems like the best way to do it is to go ahead and take your leaf, your stem, like this. Let's see, like this, and then start from the top, going against the leaves, and hopefully, nope. Okay, don't start at the top. Don't start at the very top. Start where the stem starts to get a little bit harder, and then you can go ahead and see, and you just do that a bunch of times. Get it? A bunch of time. So yeah, just do that. I don't know how much you really need. I'm probably gonna fill it up. Let's see. This has a measuring. I'm probably gonna fill up to 1/8 of a cup. You guys can see that on the inside there. And then after that, we're gonna move on to the garlic, and then we can finally start actually making the sauce. So look forward to that. Finished cutting up the garlic and doing the thyme. This is about as fine as I could get the garlic. I spent a good little bit chopping it into pieces. If you have a garlic crusher, that might be the best thing to use. I might end up getting one myself actually. So now that we're done with the cheese and the thyme and the garlic, it's time to actually get started on making your homemade Alfredo sauce. So the first thing you're going to do, take your heavy cream and go ahead and put it in the pan that you plan on using. And then you're going to end up putting in your butter. So I'm just going to go ahead and use the whole thing of heavy whipping cream. And then I cut my butter into 6 pieces. You can cut it up a little finer than that, but you're going to go ahead and plop your butter into the heavy whipping cream. and then turn on the heat. And then you want to get it up to a simmer. After you get it to a simmer, go ahead and mix it around. You should be mixing it as the butter melts. Once you get it to a simmer and it's starting to thicken up, that's when you go ahead and add all the other things like the cheese and the garlic and the thyme. You add it at the end, right before it's actually like done, so that way everything will mix together real nice and smooth. So yeah, you just go ahead and wait until the butter's melted. I have the temp at a medium heat. Um, and I'm just gonna wait for the butter to melt, and then I'll probably turn it up a little bit higher, get it to a simmer, and then turn it down, and then let it thicken up like I said before adding in the cheese and all the other good stuff. You're also supposed to put some salt and pepper in, so I'm gonna go ahead and get that ready too. And it's seasoned to taste, so it's up to you how much salt and pepper you decide to put in there. You're not supposed to use salted butter. I did, which is why you add the salt, but salt adds a lot of good flavor. It helps bring out a lot of flavors as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and add just a little bit more than is added by the butter. If you've never seen a simmer before, this is kind of what it looks like. It's pretty close to boiling. I'd say that this is probably a little bit boiling, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn down the heat a little bit. That's what I have my flame set to. Hopefully, as time goes on, it'll cool down a little bit and go to a roiling uh simmer instead of what I assume is boiling. I don't think it really matters that much if it does actually get to boiling. Um, but I'm following a recipe from Joshua Wiseman, so I'm not a master chef either. I don't know if it'll really affect the taste or anything like that. Maybe you're not supposed to let it boil because it'll thicken up too fast or something like that. But yeah, so just try and get it to a simmer. I'd say that that's definitely closer to a simmer. You might not be able to see it on camera, but it's a lot more smooth. The bubbles are way smaller. Um, so yeah, at this point, you just want to stir every now and again, wait for it to thicken up, and then you can finally add the cheese and all the other ingredients you need to make this into a delicious, delicious Alfredo. Realistically, I'm not sure how well this will show through, but it's definitely thickened up. Um, as you can see, it's starting to like pull at the edges and stuff like that. Hopefully, you guys can see that. I might have already gotten all the chunks off the edge. But yeah, it's definitely thicker now. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the heat and then add everything that I need to. Like I said, I'm only going to be adding 2/3 of the cheese that I grated. You want to save the last third to put on top after you're done actually making the Alfredo itself. And then I'm also going to be adding the thyme and garlic, which go in right after the cheese, really. And then you should salt and pepper it to taste. The butter I used already had salt in it, so I'm not going to be adding any salt. But I'm definitely going to be adding pepper. So you're just going to want to go ahead and stir in the cheese until it disappears. Um, I'm turning off the heat because you're supposed to, but obviously, if it doesn't seem like the cheese is melting very fast or it's not as thick as you want to, you can go ahead and keep the heat on to try and help reduce it a little bit. I don't know if it'll actually change the taste or not, um, but I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna add the thyme now and the garlic, and the part of the reason you wanted to cut the garlic so fine was so that way it would disappear into the sauce and while still adding flavor. Realize some of the garlic is stuck. Go ahead and put it in there. And then go ahead and stir. And then at the end, this is what it'll look like. and I don't think it's as thick as it's supposed to be. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the heat back on since it's not as thick as I think it's supposed to be, and just hope it doesn't ruin the flavor or texture of the sauce. Everything is officially done now. The sauce thickened up a little bit, so we're gonna go ahead and add it all into one pot. And make sure you kept your pasta water on hand, because if we don't have enough sauce, we're gonna end up using the pasta water to help make the sauce a little bit more creamier, and also to just stretch it out a little bit more so there's more sauce all around. Yeah. Look at that. I don't know how well it shows up, but there is definitely enough sauce. There is definitely enough sauce, so I'm going to go ahead and plate it up and try it out for you guys. Hope you enjoy. Well, I forgot to add the salt and pepper to the sauce, so I added some on later. I'm going to go ahead and try the Alfredo and let you guys know what I think. Absolutely delicious. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification to get notified when I go live or release a video. It really helps me out and makes me more motivated to continue streaming and making YouTube videos and stuff like that. Hope you have a good rest of your day. Peace.